As the first Terran ship, Valor, entered the HFY system, its sensors scanned the distant stars, picking up traces of the massive alien fleets converging on the planet's orbit. Commander Lucas Tanner stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the holo panel in front of him. His fleet, 36 Terran warships, reinforced by an array of stealth-class vessels, moved with deadly precision, each ship in its designated position. The mission was clear: make a stand, show the galaxy that humanity was here, and they would fight for every inch of space. "Commander, we're being hailed by the HFY. They demand our immediate surrender," reported Lieutenant Mendez, her voice calm, but with an undercurrent of disbelief. Tanner didn't flinch. He was used to the alien posturing by now. The Terrans had encountered the HFY before. Diplomatic talks had failed miserably, and so had skirmishes in neutral space. But the HFY were nothing compared to what awaited the galaxy if the humans weren't stopped. "Tell them we'll respond with force if necessary." Within moments, the calm voice of a HFY diplomat echoed through the bridge speakers. "This is an ultimatum, Terran. You are trespassing on sovereign territory. Leave now or face immediate consequences." Tanner leaned forward, his knuckles gripping the armrest of his command chair. "Tell them they've made their choice." The signal cut off. Seconds later, Valor's cannons fired, sending a warning shot into the vastness of space, a clear message. Humanity would not back down. The alien fleets, still too distant to strike, began to move toward the planet, but they couldn't predict what came next. Tanner issued the order to initiate a full-spectrum offensive, launching drones and activating cloaking devices. On HFY's surface, hidden within the dense jungles and mountain ranges, the Terran ground forces were preparing as well. Traps were set, weapons loaded. The humans weren't just fighting for the planet, they were fighting to prove a point. Humanity didn't conquer through sheer strength alone. They conquered with cunning, adaptability, and a will that no force in the galaxy could match. The storm had begun. Back on Earth, in a secure underground facility beneath the sprawling city of New Chicago, the history of humanity's rise to power was etched in the walls, carved not with stone, but with the sweat and blood of countless generations. It was here that Alex Carter, a veteran of humanity's most brutal wars, stood before a group of young officers at the Terran Military Academy. The recruits, fresh from basic training, sat in a semicircle, eyes eager but unaware of the true weight behind the lessons they were about to learn. Carter's voice cut through the silence. "You're about to step into a war unlike anything this galaxy has ever seen, and I'm here to tell you why we, humans, will win. Not because we have the biggest ships or the best technology. No, we'll win because we fight like no one else. And we fight because, for us, survival is not optional, it's a necessity." The recruits exchanged uncertain glances, unsure of what to make of Carter's words. He continued, pacing slowly in front of them. "We've been fighting wars for as long as we've existed. From the earliest days of humanity, we've had to scratch and claw our way to survival. We fought each other in endless wars for resources, for dominance, for the future. But more importantly, we learned to adapt. Every time we were pushed to the brink of extinction, we found a way to survive. Whether it was the devastation of nuclear conflict or the chaos of a world on fire, humanity's strength has never been in numbers or firepower alone. It's in our ability to evolve in the face of destruction." Carter paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. He could see the doubt in their eyes, but he also saw something else, something crucial, the beginning of understanding. "Our history is stained with blood," he said quietly, "but that's how we learned to win. The galaxy's biggest mistake was underestimating us. They think we're just another species, another set of primitives struggling to make it. They don't know that we're warriors to the core, and if we have to fight for every star, every planet, every breath, we will." A long silence followed before Carter spoke again, his voice growing cold and deliberate. "Remember this, recruits, the galaxy won't fight you the way you expect. But it will fight you the way you need, and that's how we'll win." As Carter finished, the recruits stood, their faces hardening with the weight of their commander's words. They weren't just soldiers now, they were Terran warriors. And this was just the beginning. The battle at HFY had shattered the expectations of the Telthar and Vorok, and the ripple effects of that humiliation reached far beyond the battlefield. Admiral Grace Kennedy stood on the command deck of the Indomitable, her flagship, staring out at the vast expanse of space. The Terran fleet had made their presence known, but the alien coalitions were not done. They had regrouped, formed new alliances, and were already making plans for a massive counterstrike. The galaxy was on the edge of war, and humanity was at the center of it. "Admiral, we're receiving distress signals from multiple colonies on the Outer Rim," reported Lieutenant Colonel James Roos, the operations officer. "Vorok forces are advancing on Row 3 and Epsilon XI. They're pulling their fleets into position to strike at us all at once." Kennedy's lips tightened into a grim line. The Terrans had expected retaliation, but not on this scale. The sheer audacity of the alien coalition's counter-offensive was impressive, perhaps even overwhelming. But the Terrans were not a species to be cowed. They had been forced into battle after battle on their homeworld, and that had forged a spirit unlike any other in the galaxy. Kennedy knew that the aliens had underestimated humanity's adaptability, its ability to survive impossible odds. "Prepare the fleet for immediate jump," she ordered, her voice hard with resolve. "We're not waiting for them to come to us. We're going to them." The Indomitable and the rest of the Terran fleet made the jump into the core systems of the alien coalition, catching their enemies off guard. No warning, no time to react. It was pure Terran doctrine: strike first, hit fast, and never give the enemy a moment to breathe. The alien ships, heavy and cumbersome compared to the Terran fleet, were scattered across the battlefield in disarray as the humans cut through their lines like a hot knife through butter. The Vorok commander, General Torkan, watched in disbelief as his flagship, the Sundered Dawn, took a direct hit from a Terran missile barrage. The blast rocked the ship violently. "How are they so fast?" he muttered, the question hanging in the air like an unspoken truth. Admiral Kennedy's voice came over the comm, cold and sharp. "You're not fighting to win anymore, General. You're fighting to survive. And that's something humans know better than anyone." In the space around them, the alien fleets began to buckle under the relentless assault. The Terrans were not just fighting to win, they were fighting to prove that no matter what, they would never be broken. Not here. Not ever. The battle raged in the depths of the Vorok-controlled sector, and Lieutenant Jack Ryan, now in command of the Endurance, a mid-class Terran warship, was about to face one of the most important missions of his career. The alien forces had launched a devastating counterattack, and the Terrans were outnumbered in a system critical to the entire war effort. Ryan was given a task no one else could handle: take out the Vorok flagship, Emperor's Wrath, a behemoth of war that commanded the loyalty of thousands of alien ships. It was the heart of the Vorok fleet, and if destroyed, it could shatter their resolve and tilt the balance of the war. "Lieutenant Ryan, the fleet's en route," said Captain Nora Whittaker, his superior officer, her voice tight with tension. "You know the odds. It's not going to be easy. But if we fail, the Vorok will have free rein to crush the colonies. We have no choice." Ryan nodded grimly. He wasn't prepared to die, but he knew his orders: strike fast, hit hard, and exploit every weakness. Terran ships were smaller, more agile, and far more maneuverable than their bulky alien counterparts. What the Terrans lacked in sheer firepower, they made up for with speed, precision, and an unpredictable fighting style the Vorok had never encountered. As Ryan surveyed the enemy fleet through the viewport, he recalled everything he'd been taught at the Terran War College, every lesson on how to fight against enemies who thought they could crush you with sheer numbers. Prepare the fleet for evasive maneuvers, Ryan barked. Activate cloaking. We go in hard and fast, no hesitation. The Endurance and her supporting ships slipped into the void like shadows, their cloaking technology rendering them almost invisible. As they approached the Emperor's wrath, Ryan's heart raced. This wasn't just a mission. This was a statement. A statement to the Vorok and to the galaxy. When the attack came, it came like a storm. Ryan's ship emerged from the cloak, unleashing a full salvo of ion pulses at the Vorok flagship, catching the massive ship off guard. The alien crew scrambled, but the Terran strike was already in motion. Missiles slammed into the Emperor's wrath, tearing through its shields and ripping into its core. Direct hit, shields failing. Ryan's tactical officer reported, but the fight was far from over. Ryan's voice rang out over the comms, his tone cold and precise. Let's see if they can adapt to us. Back on Earth, deep within the heart of the Terran Empire, Captain Lily Armstrong stood before a group of freshly minted recruits in a grim training hall, the walls lined with holographic displays of past battles, some of them centuries old, others just weeks gone by. The academy was quiet, but the air was thick with the tension of soldiers in the making, eager yet uncertain of the brutal realities ahead. Armstrong, a veteran of countless skirmishes and Black Ops missions, eyed them all with steely resolve. She wasn't here to offer reassurances. She was here to prepare them. You're about to enter a galaxy that will show you no mercy, Armstrong began, her voice gravelly, honed by years of combat. Out there, you'll face enemies who think they can break you. But there's something they don't understand about us. Something they'll never understand. She paused, pacing in front of the recruits, her boots clicking sharply against the floor. We don't fight like anyone else, Armstrong continued. We fight because we have to. Because we've been fighting for survival since the first human set foot on Earth. We didn't inherit peace from our ancestors. We fought for it. And we'll fight for it again, every single day, until the galaxy realizes we're not just another species to be conquered. We're a species that will make the galaxy adapt to us, or it will burn. The recruits shifted uneasily, but Armstrong wasn't finished. This. She waved a hand to indicate the holographic war maps surrounding them, is not about glory. It's not about honor. It's about survival. You've been trained to adapt, to improvise. When the enemy thinks they've cornered you, you find a way out. When they think they've won, you make them pay for every inch of ground they've taken. That's the Terran way. She walked to the front of the room and turned to face them all, her eyes burning with intensity. Now let's talk about the Terran code, she said. It's simple. Adapt, overcome, evolve. The recruits stood straighter, understanding dawning in their eyes. Because that's how we win, every single time. The galaxy's alliance of alien factions, shattered by their defeat at Chara VI and the loss of their most formidable warships, had regrouped in a desperate bid to reclaim control. Their first move was catastrophic, an all-out strike on New Terra, humanity's beating heart, the nerve center of the Terran Empire. But they underestimated one crucial thing, the Terrans' readiness to defend their home. General Torkan of the Vorok, leader of the Silent Legion, was no stranger to battle. His elite warriors were the most feared soldiers in the galaxy, genetically engineered for speed, strength, and ruthless efficiency. For centuries, they had annihilated entire civilizations. But the Vorok had never faced anything like the Terrans. And as Torkan watched the first wave of his forces land on New Terra's surface, he felt a creeping doubt. The Silent Legion's initial assault was brutal, and the humans, unprepared for the scale of the attack, were quickly forced into defensive positions. The urban sprawl of New Terra's capital, Grand Haven, became a war zone as the Legion advanced, their soldiers cutting down anything in their path with precision and cold fury. The Terran defenders, despite their fierce training, were pushed back into the city's fortified core. But then the unexpected happened. The ground began to shake. Buildings trembled. A sudden violent explosion tore through the street just ahead of the Legion's advance. The explosions weren't random. They were coordinated, designed with the precision of a predator stalking its prey. Hidden traps, buried explosives, underground tunnels, and sniper nests. Human ingenuity had turned the city itself into a labyrinth of death. Torkan's orders to advance turned to confusion. The Silent Legion was elite, but it was trained for conventional warfare. It was not prepared for the guerrilla tactics that the Terrans executed with chilling efficiency. As his forces moved deeper into the city, they found themselves relentlessly ambushed, drawn into the very traps they had assumed were meant for other species. "Command, we're losing control," Torkan's voice crackled over the comm. "The humans, they are everywhere." A streak of fire lanced across the sky as the Endurance, now fully operational again after its mission against the Vorok flagship, rained down missiles from orbit. General Torkan knew something had gone terribly wrong. The Silent Legion was no longer an unstoppable force. It was being hunted. On the ground, Captain Lily Armstrong led a counterattack, her eyes cold with focus. "This is our city now," she growled into her comms. "Let them feel the wrath of humanity." The Silent Legion would not be so silent for long. The Terrans had no intention of letting them leave New Terra alive. The galaxy trembled under the weight of the alien coalition's desperation. After months of brutal clashes, the Vorok and Selthar had thrown everything they had at humanity. The unthinkable had happened. Every major Terran colony, every vital stronghold, had been attacked at once. But rather than cower, humanity had dug in its heels and fought back with a ferocity that had taken the invaders by surprise. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Grace Kennedy stood before a tactical display of the entire war zone, her fingers drumming against the console. The Terran fleet was stretched thin, engaged on multiple fronts. Entire fleets of Selthar warships, backed by an endless stream of reinforcements, were descending on the core worlds, while the Vorok launched their final assault on New Terra. "We fought them off before," Kennedy muttered under her breath, her voice tight with resolve. "We'll do it again." Her second-in-command, Captain Derek Shaw, approached, eyes grim. "Admiral, they're converging on us faster than anticipated. We won't be able to hold New Terra for long if they keep pushing. The defenses are stretched to the breaking point." Kennedy turned to face him, her eyes cold with determination. "We don't hold. We strike back. We force them to fight on our terms. If they want New Terra, they're going to have to bleed for it." The Terran strategy had always been simple. Hit hard, hit fast, and always keep the enemy guessing. It wasn't about winning through superior firepower. It was about forcing the enemy into a position where they had no choice but to surrender or die. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its ships or its weapons. It was its ability to adapt to the chaos of war. "We make them regret coming here," Kennedy ordered, her voice rising above the din of the war room. "Prepare for a full counteroffensive. No mercy." As the Indomitable broke orbit, the Terran fleet plunged into the heart of the alien armada. Missiles and ion beams filled the sky as the Terran ships slipped through the enemy lines like predators hunting their prey. The aliens had come to destroy humanity. They had failed. And now, humanity would show them the cost of underestimating the most dangerous species in the galaxy. "All ships, engage." Kennedy's voice rang out. The countdown had begun. The war was over. The galaxy lay in ruins, but humanity stood unbowed, its victory absolute. The remnants of the alien coalition had scattered, their fleets in disarray, their will broken. New Terra had survived, and with it, humanity's claim to the stars was cemented. Admiral Grace Kennedy stood before the vast windows of the Galactic Council's central chamber, the stars outside shimmering like diamonds in the void. It had been a long, brutal campaign, but humanity had emerged not just victorious, but dominant. The Terran Empire was no longer a fledgling power. It was the most powerful force the galaxy had ever seen. General Erik Larson, standing at her side, was the first to speak. "They'll never challenge us again," he said, his voice quiet, but filled with an unmistakable pride. He glanced at Kennedy, a rare smile pulling at his lips. The galaxy's learned a harsh lesson, one they won't soon forget. Kennedy nodded, her eyes cold and focused. The Terran military had won through blood, sacrifice, and sheer, unrelenting force. But victory was only the beginning. There was no peace without vigilance, no stability without control. The Terran leadership was now meeting in the council hall, where species from across the galaxy had gathered, some to negotiate terms, others simply to submit. The once feared Selthar and Vorok now stood before the Terran delegation, their heads bowed in submission. Their once great empires, crippled by war, had no choice but to recognize the Terran Empire's supremacy. Kennedy's voice cut through the silence as she addressed the assembly, her words calm, but carrying the weight of centuries of struggle. "We didn't seek this war. We didn't want it, but the galaxy has learned what happens when it underestimates humanity. We're not here to conquer. We are here to ensure survival. Ours and yours. If you seek peace, it will be given. If you choose war, know this: we will end it." The room was silent for a long moment before the Selthar envoy, their eyes filled with weariness, spoke. "We accept your terms, Terran." Kennedy's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. The galaxy now belonged to humanity. They were not conquerors. They were survivors, and that was the most dangerous thing of all. As the final terms were signed, Kennedy turned to Larson, her voice low. "This is just the beginning, General. The universe will bend to us, or it will burn." And with that, the Terran Empire's reign over the galaxy began, built on the foundation of unyielding will and the indomitable spirit of humanity.